Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Paramangsa Paribrajagacharya Sitaresvara Smadhati Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Gopalaki Jaya Ananta Kodi Vaishnava Ki Jaya Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jaya Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jaya Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Khand Radha Khand Giridhar Ki Jaya Vrindavan Dham Ki Jaya Navadvip Dham Ki Jaya Ganga Mai की जाए जमुना माई की जाए गुरु द्वारका धाम की जाए स्वामी तो भक्तबिंद की जाए ऑल ग्लोरी टू देयर सिमर ऑल ग्लोरी टू देयर सिमर थैंक यू वेरी मच
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Sri Prabhupada and all glories to the Samad Vaishnava devotees. Hare Krishna to you all devotees. I'm sure you all here might have seen the poster and the scheduled speaker is unable to be here to be with us today. So as usual, we have His Grace SALIKA Prabhu who will be stepping in to speak as he usually does. So SALIKA Prabhu, thank you for rendering this wonderful, amazing services of stepping in. And of course, SALIKA Prabhu needs no introduction. So we may put the verse on the screen and then Shri SALIKA Prabhu, you take it over from here. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So we have the verse on the screen.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritam Narayachaivam Narottamam Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tatu Jayamudiraye Nasta Praishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamansloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Narayan, unto Narayan, Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam, by regular attendance in classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees. All that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the Supreme Personality of God, who is praised by transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 7, text number 3, which is subtitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. And the text read thus. I hope I'm clear, I'm loud enough.
Yeah, you are loud and clear.
Yes,
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hridayan udyamubi basyaha kamaschikre dishayanta aha swatas tritasya chakatam nirvritasya sadai ayataha kridayan udyamuri basya kamaschikre disayataha swatas tritasya chakatam nirvritasya sadayataha kridayan udyamuri basyaha kamaschikre disayataha swatas tritasya chakataham nirvritasya sadayataha. Word for word translation. Kridayan, in the matter of playing. Udyama, enthusiasm. Albasya, of the boys. Kamaha, desire. Shikridisaha, willingness to play. Anyataha, with other boys. Swata tripstasya, for one who is self-satisfied. Cha, also. Kataham, what for? Nirivitasya, one who is detached. Sadaha, all that times. Anyataha, otherwise. Translation. Purport by His Divine Grace. Silabai Charanara Vindesi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dayabu Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys or with various diversions because they are encouraged by desire. But there is no possibility of such desire for the Lord because He is self-satisfied and detached from everything at all times. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one without a second, there is no possibility that anything besides Him can exist. He expands Himself by His energies in multiple forms of self-expansions and separated expansions as well. Just as fire expands itself by heat and light, since there is no other existence besides the Lord Himself. The Lord's association with anything manifest is association with Himself. So in the Bhagavad Gita 9, chapter 9, text number 4, the Lord says, Mayatatam idam sarvam jagad avyaktamutina matstani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastita. The complete manifestation of the cosmic situation is an expansion of the Lord Himself in His impersonal feature. All things are situated in Him only, yet He is not in them. That is the opulence of the Lord's attachment and detachment. He is attached to everything, yet He is detached from all. Oma Gyanam Timirandasya Gyana Gyanam Chala Akaya Shaksho Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Sri Shaitaya Manubhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swam Padantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutam Jitapadam Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Shah Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitantam Sa Adivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijanam Saitam Krishna Shideva Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padasahaganam Lalita Sri Vishaka Vitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpatu Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakarpa Taru Vyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyasivascha Patitanam Pavashnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Mukha Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lagayate Girim Yakripa Tamaham Bande Sri Guru Dinatarina Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Sivasadi Vigora Bhakta Vinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the text again says, boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys or with various diversions because they are encouraged by desire. But there is no possibility of such desire for the Lord because he is self-satisfied and detached from everything at all times. Hare Krishna. So dear devotees, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to the Parampara, and to all of the devotees on this platform listening to this auspicious narration of Srimad Bhagavatam, and to all of those who are listening to this discussion from other channels. I pray that by all of your mercy, I will be able to render this service for the glorification of the Lord and the pleasure of his devotees. So today we're discussing the third canto, chapter 7, text number 3, which is talking about the further inquiries by Vidura. We recall from the previous chapter of this canto, Maitreya Muni and Vidura were in a conversation, and they were having a very beautiful discussions about the beautiful subject matter of creation. The Srimad Bhagavatam is described as non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna himself. And so therefore the Acharyas have described it as Granta Avatara, or book incarnation of Lord Krishna, or books that narrate the pastimes of his various incarnations. We all remember that when Lord Krishna appeared on this earth 5,000 years ago, he enacted several pastimes. And when he leaves into another lila, another pastimes, after his disappearance on this earth planet, he returned back in this form of Srimad Bhagavatam, which scholars have described as Sri Krishna Parivartita. In the darkness of the night, when the sun rises, it sheds lights on the dense dark universe. And in the same way, the light of the Srimad Bhagavatam descend after the disappearance of Lord Krishna to shed light on the misdirected civilization in this age of Kali. And as we know, this Srimad Bhagavatam has 12 cantos. And they describe the Lord. So every bit of the Srimad Bhagavatam is simply talking about one subject matter, Krishna, from different angles. According to Srila Sukadeva Goswami, the speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam has 10 subject matter, which is describing the universal creation of the Supreme Lord, his secondary creation, which is done by Lord Brahma. And the third subject matter taught in the Srimad Bhagavatam is discussing the position of the living entities in various planetary systems scattered across the unlimited universes of Lord Krishna in the planetary systems. And the fourth subject is talked about Poshanam, which is describing the lost protections of his devotees. And then the fifth subject matter, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Srila Sukadeva Goswami, is talking about the inclination to act. Then that leads into because it's talking about action, it leads into the subject matter of the reign of Manus. Then it goes into the topics of the Lord's various incarnations and his devotees. And the next subject matter discussed in the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the annihilation of the universes. Then liberation is discussed, and ultimately, the supreme shelter of the Lord, Sri Krishna, is described. So the first canto and the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam are considered to be the lotus feet of the Lord. The first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam forms a perfect prelude to the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It describes the mood which Vidura and Maitreya are exemplifying here in this text, or in this chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who are Sahajias like to read the subject matter of Krishna Lila with the gopis, but the mood in which one should approach Srimad Bhagavatam is what Vidura is exemplifying here. The first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, according to Srila Sukadeva Goswami, is describing, is answering the questions, it establishes the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is the topmost part of spirituality. And in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the process of Vedic landscape, the demigods, the mediation of the universal form of the Lord and the Supramatma and part of his manifestation of different opulence in the form of Ashtanga Yoga are all explained. And towards the end of that, there is the Shatosloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described, which gives a setting of the 10 topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we entered into this, the third canto of the Bhagavatam, most of the time, is described as the thigh of the Lord. And it's predominantly describing what is described in Vedic language as Sarga and Visarga, or this conversation of Vidura and Maitreya. This third canto describes the embryology of family life, Sankhya philosophy, Bhakti Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Karma Yoga, and many other subject matter. We hear the household life of Kandaba Muni and his divine wife, Devahuti, the Lord in that incarnation, and the teachings of Kapila Dev. So, as we go forward in this third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll be discussing the subject matter of how to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Vidura is exemplifying here how to approach Srimad Bhagavatam. To take shelter by understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that one can be able to understand his activities, his pastimes, his leelas. So in continuation of the conversation that has been going on between Vidura and Maitreya Muni, in this particular, this is actually the second text in the series of questions that Vidura put together. When I was reading this text, sometimes the African devotees are said to be very funny when it comes to question and answer. Of course, the Srimad Bhagavatam is a question and answer section. It's the all about question. Srimad Bhagavatam started with the question by the sages, with the 6 questions of the sages of Naimi Sarayan. So Srimad Bhagavatam is actually a question and answer section. But the interesting thing that was coming to mind when I was looking at this verse a few minutes ago was that from the second text of this verse to the text number 7, Vidura is asking only one question, but it takes time to describe his question elaborately before asking the question essentially. So African devotees are like this. Sometimes they said African devotees, when they want to ask one question, I remember sometimes once Srila Prabhupada disciple was speaking on this platform and he was saying, he said, I think Sridhar Maharaj also has said that one time, that the African devotees, in asking one question, they will speak more than 10 minutes to answer one's question. And it's only that Japatika Swami Maharaj, when he came to West Africa in the mid-90s, last time he came to West Africa. So I remember he was giving a class, and one devotee was going to ask questions. And he started describing and describing and describing so many. So Maharaj he put his hand on his chin and he was looking at the devotee. When he finished asking the question, when he finished narrating, then he asked him, he said, so what is the question? So the interesting thing that was coming to my mind as I was reading this text was that the West African devotees, especially West African devotees that I know very well, actually are like this mood of Vidura. We've seen that Vidura, to ask one question, it will give so many elaboration, and that is one of the questions that is this text. So this text looks like, what is it talking about? Because he is trying to ask one question, and when we go to the text number 7, he will be asking the question more directly. But in asking this one question, he went into 6 texts to describe the question he wanted to ask. And this particular text is describing 3 basic things. The first thing is talking about is describing the supreme nature of the supreme personality of Godhead. In the Srimad Bhagavat and in the Srimad Brahma Samhita, in the text number 38, it is said, the Lord Brahma very expertly recited a verse, Preman Jana Churita Bhakti Vilo Chanena Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilo Kayanti Yam Shama Shundram Ashityam Guna Swarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam Bhajami. That he, Lord Brahma, is worshiping the primeval Lord, who is Shamashundra, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes. Inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotee sees in the art of the art with the eye of devotion, tinged with the sort of pure love of God. So in this text, Vidura is expertly giving that inconceivable nature of the supreme personality of Godhead, that inconceivable, incomprehensible nature of the Supreme Lord by the conditioned soul in the conditioned world is described by Vidura in this question, in his prelude to the question, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is self-satisfied and is detached, is given the characteristics. It is said that for you to understand a person, you need to know the character of that personality. So Vidura here is describing the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Brahma, in another text of Brahma Samhita, in the text number 33, it describes how one can understand this character of the Lord. Lord Brahma said, Advaitam Achutam Anantim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayauvanam Cha Vedeshu Dulabam Adulabam Atma Bhaktau Govindam Adipurusham Tamam Bhajami. That he is worshiping the primeval Lord, Lord Krishna, who is inaccessible to the Vedas but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, and who is beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet is a person possessing the beauty of a blooming youth. This is the Brahma speaking, describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the nature of the pure devotees. The pure devotee, they exhibit, they displays the character of the Lord to make the listener to understand this person, the character of the person they are describing. So Vidura in the text we are reading today is doing the same thing by describing that the Supreme Personality of God, the nature of the Supreme Personality of God by its character is self-satisfied. That is the first word. And the second one is that is detached from everything. Krishna is manifested, Shila, in his incarnation as this avatar, Parashuram. Parashuram described the 6 opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the 2 of them is described in this text, that the Supreme Lord is self-satisfied. He doesn't have to desire, and somebody who is someone who is satisfied, he doesn't have to desire for anything. He doesn't have to look for anything, nor detach from anything. Sorry. So it doesn't have to be dependent on anything. This is the character of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vidura is describing here. And this brings us to the main interesting part. I will be speaking on this. I'll be talking about the desire, which is in contrast to the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity. Actually, it is said that for the glory of a particular subject to be more glorified, to be understood, one has to give the other side. Those who are experts in speaking, when they want to talk about subject matter, they describe what that subject matter is not. The difference between the Lord and the living entity is that the Lord is never desirous of anything because he's self-satisfied. And the nature of the living entity is that is always driven by desire. The nature of the living entity is that is always desiring something. Although he has developed that desire from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the desire of the Lord is self-satisfied. The living entity cannot self-satisfy his desire. So we see in the material world that everything that the living entity does in the material world is driven by desire. And sometimes when we wonder, should one not desire? If one does not have any desire, then he's no longer living. In fact, it is said that one of the very symptoms of a living being is that he is desirous. Even as a devotee, if we do not have a desire, we cannot serve the Lord, we cannot eat prasadam, we cannot desire so many beautiful things. When we look at the mode of our dressings, when we look at the mode of our talking, when we look at the mode of everything that we do, they are all driven by desire. And the world in all is driven by this desire. And the unfortunate thing is that desire does not bring anything positive. In the material world, desire has nothing positive about it. Why? Because Lord Krishna told Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, Dukkha layam asaswatam. The nature of this place is that as long as you desire in this material world, it's going to end up in misery. There is no way you can desire in this world and get an end result of being happy. It is not possible. Because once you desire in this conditional life, the end result is desire. Whether that desire is fulfilled or desire is unfulfilled, the natural result is that the living entity will be miserable. Why is it going to be miserable? Because desire is only meant to give you more desires. because the nature of desire, because it is the nature of the Lord, it cannot be satiated by material circumstances. Desire in its true meaning reflects the supreme personality of God. So when the divine entity wants to desire, it can never be happy, because the desire will lead him into more desires. And Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 text number 20, chapter 7 text number 27, yes, in chapter 7 in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talked about Isha Dvesha Samuteina. In that verse, Lord Krishna is explaining the living entity is original entering into this material world is caused by desire and hatred. So this is nature of the living entity, but that nature of the living entity to desire has its original existence. It has its original purpose, and we see this how desire cannot be. There are so many examples in the scriptures. Hiranyakashipu, for example, Hiranyakashipu desires to have all kinds of powers. He prayed to Lord Brahma. He performed so much of a rigorous austerity. And even when his desire has been fulfilled by Lord Brahma, although he wanted to become immortal, and Lord Brahma said, I don't even have immortality. But he thought, out of his foolishness, he is so smart. He asked Lord Brahma to give him deathless in a different way. And after achieving all of whatever he desires for, still by natural inclination, his desire was never satiated. Just because of the opulence of the Lord manifesting in his divine son Prahlad, he became miserable. And he did everything in his power to destroy Prahlad Maharaj. And that desire to destroy Prahlad Maharaj ended up becoming his own destruction. So no one can be desireless in the material world. But this desire also can never be satiated by any material arrangement. The more the living entity achieves his desire, if it does not achieve his desire, it becomes miserable. And how this desire develops, Lord Krishna explained that in the Bhagavad Gita, in the chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna talked about how desire is very dangerous through just the process of contemplation. In the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, text number 62, Lord Krishna told Arjuna, Yayato Vishayam Pumsha Sangat Teshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama. That is the key verse. The word. Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Kama Kroda Vijayate. Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Sangas mean attachment. Sanga Sanjayate Karma. Karma means desire. And in this verse that we're reading today, Vidura is describing that the living entities, just like the boys and girls, using that as an example, are driven by their desire. But in contrast to that, the Lord is self-satisfied and is detached. But the living entity in the material world is driven by this desire by simply the simple process of contemplation. When you start contemplating, the Bhagavad Gita says that just by contemplating on the object of sense, the living entity develops attachment. And from that attachment, it develops lust. And from lust, anger. And all that destroys the living entity develops from there. From that, the delusion comes into place. So the living entity intention to achieve his desire is always causing him miseries in so many phases. So therefore, then one should say, should one not desire? But nature of the living entity is to desire. Because we cannot stop being desirous. That also is not possible. Desire is miserable. But then desirelessness is also a myth. It's illusion. It's not possible to not desire. And we can see that
There are several examples in the scriptures. There is a story that comes to mind. There is a great sage by the name Subarimuni. Subarimuni was a powerful sage. Subarimuni, in order to curb his desire, he went into the river Yamun. I think, River Yamuna. He went down. For me and you, even no matter how expert we can go under the water for some few minutes. But Subarimuni was so expert mystic that he lives permanently under the ocean, river Jamuna, just to avoid being desirous of anything. He wants to run away from attachment, which is caused by desire. So he went under the ocean. He went there. He was meditating there just to focus on the Lord alone. He wants to run away from desire because desire brings about misery. So he went there and said, I don't want to desire anything. And he went under the river Jamun and was meditating. That is a powerful meditation, to live under the water and not be suffocated. So he was living there permanently. But even at that situation, just by a simple, but somehow or the other, by divine nature's arrangement, Subarimuni saw two fishes copulating. And when he saw that, what he was running off rose in him in a very massive way. And as at that time, in that era, the king ruling at that time, I think by name is King Mandata. King Mandata was ruling at that time. Mandata asked 50 beautiful damsels. So when he came out, and this is the nature of the living entities, when the living entity desires something, his desires can never be satiated. So Subarimuni, just by seeing these two fishes, he developed desire for mating. And because he has so much of power, having done so many austerity, so he came to the king. And of course, the king, they are afraid of the yogis because they could be easily caused. So he came to the kingdom and met Mandata Muni, Rishi, the king, and he said, I desire to marry. And everybody was looking. This powerful sage, what has brought about is desire to just come and marry. And Mandata Muni said, well, I have 50 beautiful girls. You can go in there and select whichever one of them that is suitable, that you feel like. And living entities are like, we are like this. So we want to desire something small. Then when we get into the point of this choosing, then we go crazy. And so Subarimuni was a perfect example of this. And when he went into the king's sacred place where the girls are stayed, when he looked at the 50 girls, he said, wow, what is this? How should I take just one out of this? Then, after all, I'm a yogi. By my mystic yoga, I can do anything. So Subarimuni turned himself into a very powerful, young, energetic young man. Although he was aged, he was living under the water for several thousands of years, performing austerity. By the power of his mystic, he transformed himself into a very powerful, energetic young man. And instead of one, he married the whole of the 50 girls of Mandata Rishi. So he married all of them. So this is an example of inability to be desireless. And there are many stories like that in the various scriptures and the scriptures everywhere, that one can never at any time be desireless. In one side, desire is a very delicate situation because it leads into more desire and it keeps you in a miserable situation. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, what is the solution? He mentioned that what? Krishna Bhakta Nishkamya, Ataiva Santa, Bhukti Bhukti Siddhikami, Sakaliya Santa, whether you are a yogi, whether you are a siddhi, whatever you are, if you try to be desireless, you are in trouble. If you desire also, you are in trouble. So how to resolve the matter? Then one has to dovetail desire to the service of the Lord. And that is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught. And that is the essence of Bhakti Yoga. The old essence is that desire is dangerous and desire cannot be avoided. So the solution is that one has to dovetail desire. One has to dovetail desire to devotional service. And that is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. That dovetailing desire to Krishna consciousness is what Srila Prabhupada brought to us. Srila Rupa Goswami, who is the Acharya? Who is the Acharya of the Bhakti Yoga process? Srila Rupa Goswami gave us what kind of that dovetailing devotional service is to. In the Brahma Samhita, in the Nectar of Devotion, in the Nectar of Devotion, in chapter 1, verse 111, Srila Rupa Goswami described what that dovetailing of devotional service is to. Anya bilashita sunyam gyana kamadi anavitam. Anukulena Krishna no silanam bhakti. Utamam. Srila Rupa Goswami described this dovetailing of devotional service with this devotion. That devotional service, which is completely free from desire. And it's described it as Anukulena Sankapas. This devotion service, which is dovetailed to the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the solution to desire. Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada gave us something like that. So everybody desires to eat something, then take Krishna Prasadam. Everybody wants to sleep because it is a nature's call. Bhakti does not say that we should not answer to nature's call. Everybody wants to sleep, then you should sleep in Krishna consciousness. Everybody wants to talk, then we should talk in Krishna consciousness, speak Srimad Bhagavatam. Everybody likes to watch a nice pastime, then the pastimes of Krishna should become the video. Krishna desire tree .krishna.com has unlimited videos. In the 21st century, we have so many facilities, Vimeo, YouTube, Instagram, and many. You cannot even count them. So many are available. And one of them is what we are using here, the Zoom platform. There are so many unlimited channels to be able to gratify the desire to hear and to watch with the eyes. So we should do that in Krishna consciousness. So those who are perfect, those who are intelligent enough, those who are wise, they engage the use of the Zoom in hearing Krishna Katha, just as we're doing. If you see, at this moment as I'm talking to you, if you want to track how many millions, maybe probably billions of those who are on the Zoom as I'm talking to you, you'll be amazed. If an analysis can be checked on the line now and see how many numbers of living entities out of the about 8-point-something billion of living entities on the Earth planet today, if you go to Zoom now and track how many living entities are on Zoom channel, you'll be amazed the numbers of billions of living entities on the Zoom channel as we speak. But what are they zooming for? They are zooming for activities that entangles them further in Krishna consciousness, in material miseries. But devotees uses this same opportunity to be fed. That is what is dovetailing devotional service, dovetailing activities in Krishna consciousness is all about. So in the text we're reading today, Srila Prabhupada gave a very, very precise purport. But the irony is that when Srila Prabhupada gives a small, short purport, you can be sure that it is very, very loaded. Actually, this text alone that we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, although the purport looks so simple, but if we start analyzing the different points, the different words that is used in the purport by Srila Prabhupada, for the next 30 days, we can continue discussing this, because every aspect of what Prabhupada pointed to is a topic on its own that can be discussed for many days. So in the last sentence, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that the complete manifestation of the cosmic situation is an expansion of the Lord himself in his impersonal feature. And he said that all things are situated in him only, yet he is not in them. And that is another subject. Achintya Beda Abeda Tatwa. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended to resolve the confusion about Dvaita and Advaitaism in the Vedic tradition. And in the Vedic tradition, there are those who are Advaitas, and there are those who are Dvaitas. And there is always competition about who is right. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu come to bring about result to that. And that is what Bhakti is all about. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the highest. What is the highest thing? And the solution to all complex, conflicting, and competitive discussions, whatever subject matter that can be discussed, the solution is given in the Bhakti process. The Bhakti process gives what? The simultaneous activities and non-activities. And that is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teach, that we can act and not act. We can talk and not talk. We can desire and not desire. And that is the glories of a devotee. A devotee knows that every living entity by nature is driven by desire. So we are not fighting against this desire like Subarimuni, trying to avoid not to desire. Devotees are the biggest desirers, but their desire is to tail. So they are not avoiding desire. They are not also desiring, and that is why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu glorified them. Krishna Bhakta Nishkamya. They are the only one which are free from anxiety. But every other person, Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami, they are all in trouble. Why? Because by their desire, they get entangled. And there are several experiences of that in the world. And the whole world today is put in that uncomfortable situation simply by this same process of manipulating desires. Desires will only put anybody in a misery situation, because desires, when they are fulfilled, it will bring misery. When they are not fulfilled, it brings misery. And when a devotee takes desire, it desires to the Lord. And that is what is called dovetailing devotional service. So in summary, we're talking that in this verse that we're reading today, first, Vidura brings about the glory of the Supreme Personality of God by describing the two characters of the Supreme Personality of God as self-satisfied and who is always detached. And in comparison to that, he's talking about the nature of the living entity, like that of a child who is always driven by a desire. And we explain that a desired person can never be happy because he's always going to meet in misery. Why? Because if his desire is fulfilled, it will never be satiated, because material desires, fulfillment, will never be satiated to this living entity who is by nature spiritual. And if his desire is not fulfilled, still is in a miserable situation, then some yogis will think, okay, then if desires is very dangerous like this, then one should become desirous. Then we explain that one cannot also be desireless. And we give example of Subarimuni. Subarimuni was to become desireless and they become more entangled by such. And there are several things. Vishamritra was another a good example of someone who tried to fulfill his desire, but his desire kept him, and he kept on. And we all understand, remember the story of Vishamritra. So desire cannot be stopped, and one should not desire at the same time. To resolve that, one has to dovetail desire to the supreme, to devotional service, to the Supreme Personality of God. But now, in conclusion, also dovetailing devotional service, the desire into devotional service also can be also dangerous. How is that? Because when we start engaging in devotional service, we can develop gratification in devotional service. And that's why Srila Prabhupada said that one can be in devotional service and become a karma yogi. One can be in devotional service and become a Jnani yogi. One can be in devotional service and become an Astanga yogi. So how to avoid that pitfall in dovetailing devotion to devotional service, then one has to cultivate devotional service like a farmer cultivates his crops and removes the weeds. We have to remove the weed of sense gratification in dovetailing devotional service. We have to do all of these things for devotional service. And when we talk about removing the weeds, I always remember one of my very favorite troublesome God brother in the beginning of our devotional service, Dr. Emmanuel or James. Dr. James, he always wants to give Salika. Then I was not initiated, I was just Dr. Samson, and he always wants to give me trouble. So one day I was cooking for the Lordship and his devotees, and after I finished cooking, Dr. James, he came to the kitchen and he carried the food and started eating. I've not offered. And I said, Prabhu, I've not offered the prasadam. He said, yes. He said, Krishna is through the mouth of the Brahmanas. So Krishna is sitting the prasadam through my mouth. And he's not even initiated, not because of becoming a Brahmana. So in the course of dovetailing devotional service, we have to be also very sensitive to make sure that our devotional service dovetailing of activities does not lead us into allowing the weed that grows with dovetailing of devotional service in the form of false ego, anger, and all of that which manifests even in devotional service. destroy our devotional creeper so that at the end, our endeavor in devotion service can be a fruitful one, and then we'll become Krishna Bhakta, who is free from anxiety, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I would like to stop here. It's a very, I feel so enthusiastic reading these verses because it gives a whole lot. But for the sake of interaction, I would like to stop here and then ask devotees to ask questions and comments on this verse. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. It's great, SALIKA Prabhu, as always. Very beautiful discussion. And dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, reflections, realizations you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question or share your reflections. Well, Prabhuji, you were saying that as long as we are human beings and we desire, we are not going to experience joy or happiness from our desire. But we are living beings, and by nature, we all want to be happy.
Yeah.
And the symptom of being a living, conscious human being is desire. So what then do we do to be happy when, whether we like it or not, we are forced to desire? Because that is the symptom of a living being, of a living entity, especially being in the animal body, which is the higher animal body, the human body. So what do we do as humans?
Yeah, thank you very much for the beautiful question, Sade Prabhu. The nature of the living is Ananda Maya Vyasati, is always desiring to be happy. And it is not unnatural for him to desire to be happy because that is his nature. Actually, in the material world, we see that we cannot change the nature of nature. The nature of the living entity is to desire to be happy. So we cannot change that nature of the living entity. But we can change the nature of our desires. And that is the essence of what we're trying to share. The Bhagavad Gita tells us that the material world is dukkha layam asasutam. Everybody wants a happy ending, whether it is in marriage, it is in business, in any relationship that we engage in. The beauty of it, the desire is that we want a happy ending. But when we carefully look, even the happy ending does not become happy at the end. So if it is our nature to be happy, then why shouldn't we desire then? If it is our nature to desire, so why should we fight nature and not desire? And that's the reason exactly what we're saying. The Krishna consciousness philosophy does not say we should not desire. And it never says that we should never be happy. It only encourages us to change the nature of our desire. And we give a few examples in the course of the discourse. We talked about Vishwamitra, we talked about Hiranyakasipu, and many other great personalities in the Vedic history like that. They try to fulfill the desires. And we saw that desire is most of the time unsatiated. And even when it is satiated, so-called satiation, it brings another load of desires. So we shouldn't try not to desire because it's our nature to desire. But then, because even if we try to be desireless, if we try not to be desirous, it is also not possible because it is not in our nature not to be desirous. We are all driven by desire. So it is not natural. So we say that our desire should be dovetailed. That is the way to change our desires. So when we change the nature of our desire, by not destroying desires itself, then we learn by dovetailing our desire to the
service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Vedic scriptures is full of guides on how to dovetail our desire. And one of that very foremost way to do that, Lord Krishna told Arjuna, is that Tad Vidi Pranipatina Paripasnina Yasevaya Upadeksyanti Te Gyanam Gyaninam Tapcho Daksina. Because by nature we are always illusion, we are filled with tendency to make mistakes. So the only thing we can do is to ask questions. So that is why Krishna also told Arjuna, Machita Salva Durgani, 1858, that the living entities, we should take shelter of one who knows. And that is why the Lord has manifested himself as their chariots. By the guidance of their chariots, then we know how to dovetail desires. And Srila Rupa Goswami has given us several ways to do that. He gave us 6 basic guides on how to dovetail our desire in the nectar of instructions. The nectar of instruction 1, 2, 3 gave us the guide on how to desire and not get miserable. I hope that helps.
Yes, yes. So the idea then is that since we cannot live without desire, we just have to redirect our desire.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Now, the other question I have is from the text itself. From the purport, I should say, from the purport. So I would like to put it up here on the screen. Srila Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 9:4, wherein Srila Prabhupada states that this is Krishna himself speaking. All things are situated in him only, yet he is not in them. If everything is situated in him only, and yet he is not in them, then how do we say that Krishna is in the deity? When we have Krishna's deity on the altar, that we said, it is a material object that has been used to form that form. And we accept that that is not different from Krishna. But here it is said that that form is in Krishna, but Krishna is not in that form. If that is what I'm understanding. If that is not right, please help me.
Thank you very much. That's a beautiful question. And Srila Prabhupada answered that seemingly oxymoron kind of understanding in the same text of the Bhagavad Gita. When Prabhupada was giving purport to that text where she quoted, Prabhupada said that the fact that the Lord is said to be within and not within should not mean that one should conclude that he's not having his personal self is lost. And Prabhupada uses an example of a king or a head of state as an example in explaining this, that although the king is present in all of the states, the local governments, by his agencies, by his representatives. That is the example Srila Prabhupada gives. Prabhupada said that the king is manifested in all of the departments, but the power that rules the whole of the kingdom is still remaining with the king. So similarly, all the manifestation that we see and everything that exists, both in the material world, on the altar, or in the spiritual world, are resting on the Lord's energy. So Srila Prabhupada explained that all of the manifestation of the Lord takes place by the diffusion of his different energies, as he has explained in the chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. The Krishna is manifested and is perceived in his two primary energies, the internal and the external energies. In chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that whatever can be seen and whatever cannot be seen, whatever can be perceived or not perceived, can all be understood from the two primary energies of the Lord, the internal and the external energies of the Lord. The third energy, the marginal energies, are also the combination of the material and the spiritual. So in the text 4 and 5 of that verse, Lord Krishna said that Bhumi Apo Nalovayo, excuse me, Bhumi Apo Nalovayo Kamano Budiyevacha, Ahankara iti yami bina prakriti ashtada, that these 8 elements are all my energies. They constitute my material energies, both subtle and gross. And the parayam mitas to anyam bina prakriti ashtada. And apart from these 8, gross and subtle material energy, then exists the spiritual. And in the next verse, in the verse 6, Srila Prabhupada explained that Lord Krishna explained to Arjuna that whatever is there can be seen is all manifesting in these 2 energies only. So the fact that the Lord is said to be within and outside does not destroy his originality of personality. I'm trying to go to that verse, but that's chapter 7. In the purport of that text number 6, Papa says something. In the text number 6, he said, Eta yonini bhutani, sarvaniti upadhyaya, aham krishnasya jagata, prabhava pralaya tataha. All created beings have their sources in these 2 natures of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I'm both the origin and the dissolution. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained that the material body is developed because spirit is present within the matter. And that it explains further that a child grows gradually to boyhood and then to manhood because the superior energy spiritual is in present. So similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation of the gigantic universe is developed because of the presence of the super soul, Vishnu. So it is because Krishna is present that all of whatever conceivable or inconceivable, thank you very much for bringing it up. It is because the Krishna exists, and that is why it's called absolute personality of Godhead. That's why Srila Prabhupada described it as the absolute personality of Godhead. And anything that can be conceived is within that manifested energies of his internal and external. Anything outside of this, when you go to the next verse after this, he said, my dear Arjuna, there is no superior. Yes, mata parantara nanya kinshit asti dananjaya. Maisaba midam putam satre mani ganaiva. That my dear Arjuna, then he's explaining that there is no truth that is superior to me. Everything is resting onto me. Everything is resting on me. Just like everything is resting upon me, just as pears are strong on a thread. So everything is actually the manifestations of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, it helps, but well, since we're talking about this, maybe I better ask this question, because when we build temples and we build altars, we bring in deities and we do deity installation. And we understand at that point in time, Krishna is invited by his devotees to enter and live in that form. And so Krishna has personally been invited by his devotee to live in that form, and therefore Krishna does live in that form. What then is the picture form of Krishna, or even a murti form of Krishna that Grihastha devotees have in their houses? And these deities, there is no formal ritual done to invite the Supreme Lord to live in those forms. But, however, well, I may be wrong, but I believe the deities I have in my house have not been formally installed, but when we cook, we offer the burger to their lordships, and we believe their lordships accept the food. And we know by Guru Krishna's mercy the difference between food that has been offered to Krishna and food that has not been offered to Krishna. When we eat those two different types of food, we taste the difference. So if Krishna has to be invited by his pure devotee to live in that form, and as such, he's living in that form on the altar in the temple room, what then do we say about, like the scenario I'm giving, in my own house, we also have forms of the Lord, and they have not been formally invited into the form by any advanced devotee, just my rascal self and my humble wife. We have the deities there, and we offer our burger to their lordships. Does that mean Krishna is not accepting our food because he's not been invited, or he's already there? And if he's already there, then what is the elaborate need of doing all these rituals of inviting the Lord to live in that?
Prabhupada will always answer this kind of a question by explaining that consciousness is the missing link. The consciousness is what Krishna relates with, not the rituals. But the rituals are good because they bring us focus. I remember several years back, Srila Gurudev was asked the same question by devotees. We were having a class, and then one devotee raised his hand and asked Srila Gurudev that we have Radha Shamashundra installed in Lagos. And as at that time, there were no installed deities in the Benin, I guess. And then the other temple that in the whole of Nigeria that has an installed deity then was Porakot. So Gurudev said, so they were asking exactly the same question that, so Srila Gurudev, so these other temples, we don't have installed deities there. So how can we accept that we are worshiping Krishna in those temples? What is there to show that we are actually worshiping Krishna? I can't remember vividly verbatim what Gurudev explained, but in what I remember each year was that he went very, very deeply into explaining one of the examples he gave. I wish I'll sum it upon. It was that he was giving he narrated the story of what is this Goswami's name, who was meditating on Krishna, and he was offering sweet rice. I've forgotten the name now. He was offering sweet rice, and he wanted to test. Is it Narottam Das? He offered sweet rice. He cooked sweet rice and offered it in meditation. And then at a point in the meditation, he wanted to test whether the sweet rice is still hot, because sweet rice are not offered hot. It has to be cold. So he wanted to test whether it's still hot or cold. And then when he put his hand, it burnt him, and it came out of his trance. So Gurudev used that story, and he gave several, I can't remember everything vividly, but he gave that story and explained that the Lord reciprocates to the consciousness of the living entity. And that is why, and also, he also quoted Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text number 6, where he mentions that Patram Punshan Falam to Yam Yumi Bhaktiya Prahya Shati, that if one simply offers to Krishna water leaf, Krishna is accepting, because Krishna is not accepting the rituals, it's accepting the devotion that is attached to whatever activities we're doing. And I remember also that he explained, giving the verse, the verse 10 of the Chatusloki, verse 10, the last verse of the Chatusloki, Tisham Satakta Yutanam Bajatam Priti Bhuvakam, that if one desires to serve the Lord gives the arrangement by which one can be able to serve him. So the prana prasista that we do is a normal ritual. And remember that the process of deity worship was actually the religious principles for the age of Dwapara Yuga. So that is why the age we are in is described as age of quarrel and hypocrisy, and the religion for this age, or the dharma for this age, is chanting the holy name of the Lord. But because we are so degraded, we cannot concentrate our mind even when we chant the holy name. So therefore, the acharyas have given us, excuse me, deity worship alongside with the chanting of the holy name to help us to develop focus, because in Kali Yuga, the living entities are so gross that they cannot perceive anything they do not see. In a room, there may be 10,000 ghosts sitting in the same room. They cannot perceive it unless they have a special qualification. They cannot perceive it. So the living entity can only relate to that which they can see. So when the Lord's name is chanted, the Lord descends. It is said that Rupa Goswami said, just by mentioning the name Krishna, Krishna manifests on the tongue of the chanter with that name. But we are not that qualified. So the acharyas, to help us, they give us the process of Pancharatrika Vidi, that chanting the holy name and also engaging in the rituals. Now, the rituals, to the capacity that we are able to do it, Krishna accepts, because he is super soul in the heart of every living entity. So, but that does not negate the fact that if given the opportunity, one should do, even in the house, one should do official formal installation. It is actually to help our consciousness, our consciousness to be able to focus on the deities. But not that without the prana prasista, the deities is not there, because the Lord reciprocates with the desires of his devotees. That is my understanding, and from what I've heard from different speakers on the subject matter. Of course, they say that there are 3 levels of chanting. Srila Prabhupada mentioned that there are 3 stages of chanting, the Namabha stage. In the Namabha stage, the offensive chanting of the holy name, one does not perceive anything. One does not even hear most of the time when he's chanting. Namaparada, sorry. And in Namabhas, when one is having the clearance, when he's chanting the holy name and is having clearance, it is said that when one gets to Namabhas, even at Namabhas, he can perceive the presence of the Lord when he's chanting. And then when one gets to Sudanam, when one is able to chant the pure name of the Lord, and that is when it is said that you open your mouth, Krishna, and you see Krishna sitting right in front of you, telling you, my dear devotees, I'm here. So the deity worship in the Kali Yuga is given to us as part of the process for devotion, to help us to able to concentrate our mind, which is very, very chanchala, on the Lord, ultimately to bring us to Sudanam, or this pure chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And then I'll give this a short story that I read about Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. When one of the early times when Srila Prabhupada went to India, and Srila Prabhupada went with his disciple to his godbrother, I think it's Sridhar Swami place. Srila Prabhupada has taught the devotees that they can never take prasadam unless they offer the prasadam first to the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada went to his godbrother's place, Sridhar Swami, and they were, first Prabhupada has taught
that when even cooking for the Lord, you should not speak. But the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they saw Srila Prabhupada, they was talking with Sridhar Swami, they were conversing as they were doing the cooking. So the devotees were wondering, what is Prabhupada doing? He said we should not speak while we're trying to cook for the Lord. But then to crown that, when Prabhupada and his godbrother finished cooking, they just served the food and they started eating. So the devotees, they become so bewildered, but they couldn't challenge Srila Prabhupada. So when they left, they asked Prabhupada privately, Srila Prabhupada, this is what he told us, but what happened? And Srila Prabhupada explained to them that the pure devotees of the Lord, when they are engaging in any activities, they are engaging it indirectly in service to the Supreme Personality of God. But we cannot imitate that because we are still grossly conditioned. So that is the understanding. If the capacity is there, one should do Pranaprashista, even in the house. And there are so many devotees that does that across the globe. But if one is not able to, according to one's capacity and abilities, Krishna reciprocates that. Because Krishna is not just a wood or iron, but he reciprocates through those forms to give the devotees opportunity to meditate upon him. I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, very much. Especially the past time you just shared about Srila Prabhupada and his godbrother exercises. It's very interesting. So we have His Grace Shrimad Acharya Prabhu stand up. Prabhu, would you please give me unmute? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There's so much noise at the background where I am here, but maybe, okay, Saludini.
Yeah, we're still fine.
Okay, let me just quickly say something. See, your question, it's regarding deity worship, and well, first matter, my obeisances, all goes to Prabhupada. Please accept my obeisances, SALIKA and all the devotees. So, first is that verse where Krishna says that everything is in him and it's not in them, does not refer to his expansion as deity or any of his expansion at all. The deity is called Ashavigraha, which means the expansion of Krishna. So there is a verse in the Brahma Samhita. This verse is used also during deity installation. Dipari Vahi, the Santara Mabupeta, Dipaya, the Samana Dama, Yastati Geva, established Matavi Bhati, Govinda Madi Purushamam Bajani. That is, the verse is saying that just like when you light a candle and you use the candle to light many other candles, all of them maintain the same, light. It does not diminish the light of the other. So that is first to explain that the expansions of Krishna, in whatever form, is not different from him. That is first one. Second one, your second question about what you do at home. When you take the deities at home, it's not like in the temple where there is a formal installation. That also is a misconception. Part of our Bhakta course, disciple course here, is to explain to people what it means to have deities at home. And what we usually explain, which we, devotees to know in general, once you put a picture of Krishna up at home, you have invited him. You have invited God in your house. You don't need any ceremony. Once you put a picture of Krishna up in your house, it's your visitor, and you have to pay attention to him. So you don't just put picture of Krishna as decoration. So once you put a picture of Krishna on a table, you have invited him. Now you have to pay attention to his presence, and you have to treat him like a guest, a very important guest. So that is just, a brief explanation about what it means to have deity at home. It doesn't matter, picture, multi, whatever. Once you bring Krishna in your house and you put him somewhere, you have invited, that space is occupied by Krishna, and you have to better be careful to pay attention for your own good. Now, that's not a scare, but for anyone who understands, even ordinarily now, people are warned not to just take any images into their house because they can be inhabited by spirits that you don't know. Just taking any doll or any RPG into your house, you can be in trouble without knowing because there is no space, no vacuum in the space, or what they say, something like that. So and then what would I like to say? So many things are there. So once you have deities, and then now you said that because the deities were not invited by pure devotees, but you are worshiping them in your house. So that's also like a contradiction. Once you are worshiping the deities in your house, you are a devotee. The degree of purity, that's another question. But no one will worship Krishna unless it's a devotee. So you have invited them into your house, so you have asked them to come. So that invitation is also formal. Yeah, okay? Now we should not take all this like just sentimental statement. This is why I kind of want devotees, especially our African brothers. You should know your culture. You should know your culture before you know your culture very well before you try to adapt to another culture. So in our African culture, uh, we do worship deities, and the symbols of the deities. In most cases, you don't need elaborate ceremony uh, uh, to invoke them. So you don't need elaborate ceremony. In some cases, they do. But once it is the symbol of that deity, mind you, don't joke with it. Don't play with it. Don't take it for granted. It may be lying down there like it's nothing, but the day you want to swear with it or do anything, you will know that that deity is present. So we should understand what deity worship means. It's not something that it's arbitrary. It goes by some arbitrary law. No, it is scientific. And the Krishna is always present in his form, whatever that form is. Krishna is present. It is not whether it is material form or whatever. Once it is Krishna form, and if that goes by the demigods, the local deities, how much more you speak about the Supreme Lord? You know, the symbols of the local deities, whatever symbol that is used. I mean, like the worship of the god of iron. Whatever that you use to represent that deity, it works like anything because it's a symbol. So if it works for demigods, so why you think it's not the same for the Supreme Lord? So the Supreme Lord is even more, it's even higher because he permeates everything. So that's why that verse, the Father is the Santaram it's very important. So anyway, this is what I can say for now. I'm driving and I'm not concentrating very well. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the contributions. And you just sum up everything. Consciousness, Prabhupada said, is the messenger. So when the moment, that is why Srila Gurudev quoted as part of the answer to that question in that famous, in that class I was referring to. Tesham Saktakta Yuktanam, the moment we desire to serve the Lord, automatically the Lord is invoked and the Lord makes the arrangement. So now when the Lord manifests in that form of pictures or even a sketch, the Lord's potency is there. Although We will not understand. It is only when that's actually the limitation of our conditioned mind. Well, thank you very much for the addition. I think we have two answers of Madhavan Prabhu.
Yes, Madhavan Prabhu, please give me unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
All graces, Hare Krishna, all graces, all praise to the assembly of devotees.
Haribo.
Thank you very much for keeping the flag flying. So much appreciate your effort. I just want to corroborate on what Prabhu Vara just said. We don't have to look down our deities at home. And just like he said, God is spirit, and those who worship him in spirit. So, and once you have a deity at home, you have to worship it. You have to worship the deity. And the temple deity, the installation is important, and because we are dealing with public, many people tend to get involved. So that makes it different from your own personal deity or the one at home, and that of the temple. So just to conclude, and then the question about Krishna is just it's complex, because this text today, when the boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys, but Krishna himself, even though he's self-satisfied, he expanded himself. He has his own he has his own personal expansion, and then separated expansion, which are the Jiva Tattva and Vishnu Tattva, that is his own personal expansion, and then the Jiva Tattva. I think he did this for his own pleasure also, his own pleasure, so that he can. So it's a form of desire, if I think. But of course, the desire is going to be different from that of the boys who are enthusiastic to play with other boys. But here he also desire to have our own attention also. And for that reason, he expanded himself. So Krishna is inconceivable. It's inconceivable. In fact, even it's only Krishna conscious devotees that usually discuss elaborately about that. Other people, they don't even want to discuss elaborately because it's inconceivable. The more you want to know, the more you get confused. Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I don't know. I just
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Madhavan Prabhu, for your contributions. Bhakta Azan.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Your Grace. Please can you accept my respectful obeisances? All glory to Guru Deva Krishna Prabhupada, and all glory to the wonderful assembly devotees. My question is about the answer His Grace Srimad Bharat Prabhu gave. The question I want to ask is that we have altars in our home, and at the same time, we also put pictures, maybe in our sitting rooms and other part of our house, of Krishna or Srimati Krishna and Srimati Radharani or Guranitai. So, in this case, is it offense to put them there apart from the altars, or it's okay to put them there? Because for the especially the pictures we put at our living rooms of Krishna, we don't offer food to them. So is it okay to put them there, or it's offense? This is my first question. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for the question. Again, the answer to your question is similar to that of His Grace Sade Prabhu. In relationship, consciousness is the missing link. For an example, let us look at when in our house, our friend comes in. If our friend comes in, when our girlfriend comes in, or boyfriend, when our father comes into the house, when an emperor of the society comes into their house, we don't receive them the same way. Our receiving and relating with different persons as they come into the house are different. Why do we do that? We do that because we know that different persons, different individuals has a different meaning to us in our lives. So according to what that personality is in our relationship with that person, we treat that person in the same way. So in the same way, when we accept the fact that this is Krishna, when we accept the fact that this is the Supreme Lord, then it is only natural, even without any scriptural injunction, to understand that our treating of that particular picture or marble or whatever form of the Lord is, it is only natural for us that, it is only natural that we respect that, understanding that the form that we are dealing with has to do with this form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, but when it comes to the deity worship, when it comes to relationship with the forms of the Lord, there is a text in the Bhagavad Gita. Let me see, I think it is the chapter 14 of Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, I think text number 2. So I'm trying to remember the Sanskrit verse of that verse. Yes, chapter 14, text number 2, I'm correct. Idam gyanam upasritya mamam sadam ya agata sargepino pagdayante pralayena vyatantisha. That by becoming fixed in the knowledge, one can attain to transcendental nature like my own. So the impetus does one becomes established and one is not born. So Krishna is talking about, the point I wanted to use that is that Gyanam and Sadamyam, when one develops knowledge, it develops a particular nature. Whatever nature that we experience are defined by the knowledge that we have in our mind. So otherwise, what is the difference between our mother, our girlfriend, our wife, our office colleagues, female? The only difference is the knowledge that is in our head. So when we have that kind of knowledge, knowledge precedes perception and action. So without even being looking at the scriptural text, one should understand that relationships are formed based on knowledge. And if we admit and accept that Krishna is not different from his form, as we have read in several parts of the scriptures, then our relationship with the scriptures, with the pictures, whether it is the marble, whether it's the key holder, that we have the form of Krishna, we should treat it in such a manner that we are relating with the Supreme Lord. I don't know if that answers your question, Dr. Zan.
Sorry, Grace, I'm driving, so I have to. So,
if I can contribute something to that,
Sure.
yes, please.
Yes, please, man, for Apple.
Yeah, so his question is, we have other pictures around of the deities in the room, in the living room, etc. So that does not mean that you have to go about offering food to all of them. You have your altar. That's it. You have your altar, and there Krishna accepts your offering. Okay? Krishna is everywhere. Krishna is everywhere. But one thing you have to understand, when you put the pictures of the deities in your living room, you have to be conscious of their presence. That is one of the reasons why the Christians are not are refusing, the Catholic tradition of having Mary, Jesus pictures in the room, because more and more they are becoming conscious that it will be an offense to do something that is not bona fide in the presence of such a saintly picture. So the Protestants and the other churches that are rejecting the images, it's just because they want to be free in their rooms to do whatever they like. They want to be free. So anyway, the importance of when you have pictures of the deities or any saintly image in your living room, you have to be always conscious that you're not alone, and that those pictures you are having there, the Lord is present. You cannot do it. If you are in the presence of any important person in your room, you will not do anything that is not proper, like even remaining naked in front of those pictures. You cannot. You cannot undress in their presence. So that is why devotees, if you're not ready to live with that kind of restriction, make sure that you limit the pictures or whatever forms of the law you have in your altar and the place where you pray. But if you can also, put them around if you want, but then be more conscious now that you cannot just do anything in that living room, because Krishna, you have put Krishna's face everywhere. Now, one may say that what if the pictures are not there, but Krishna is there anyway? Yes, but you have not invited him to come and stay there, be watching you. You see now. So the space, that space, you have not asked him to come and stay there with you. He's there, but in his unmanifested form. But the moment you put this picture in your living room, then you have to be more cautious now of their presence. This, even the Christians who call themselves Protestant, I will not accept the image of Jesus Christ or Mary. This is one of the reasons. The reason they gave is that if you put the picture of Mary in your room or that of Jesus, and then you're doing anything there, that will be disrespectful. So they know this fact. And that's one of the reasons why they say do away with all the pictures, because they want to be free to do whatever they like in their rooms. So, and another thing we should remember in the other culture, like the Islam and, especially Islam and the Protestant Christianity, we learned that why Prophet Muhammad rejected the worship of the deity is because it's becoming bastardized. People are no longer respecting them as they should. And that's one of the reasons why most prophets reject deity worship, because people are abusing that. So we, after accepting the culture, we have to understand some of the rules that will make it look like I don't know, that can belittle it. You understand? You have guests in your room who sees what you're doing in front of the pictures of deities in your living room. What impression is going to go away with? You understand? So most of the prophets that condemn deity worship, it's not because they don't believe Krishna or God is not in the deity, but because with time people start abusing the presence of the Lord in these forms. And that is one of the reasons why they said do away with it. You get the point? So yes, you can have pictures in the living room, but you have to be more conscious now that you know you are not alone in the room. And Krishna is there, and there are things we cannot even to lie, even to say anything that is untruth will become difficult. You have to be very careful if you have the pictures around in your living room. Otherwise, limit them to your deity, to your altar. Leave them there. And when you go before your altar, you're going to communicate with Krishna. You're going to address the deity. So that's another level of communication. You've not exposed their eyes to everything in your room. Doesn't mean Krishna doesn't see everything. It sees everything. But again, it gives us the freedom. It gives us the liberty how we want to interact with him. No, let me just finish. So it gives us the liberty how we want to interact with him. Now, if you're saying that I see Krishna everywhere, I have got to that level where I'm seeing Krishna everywhere, then you should behave properly as a pure devotee who sees Krishna everywhere. But that's my contribution. Very good.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful.
Thank you very much for the beautiful question, Dr. Zan.
Thank you.
Yeah, Smasadi Prabhu.
Yeah.
Meet me. I will want to take excuse because I
Yeah.
have a call in about 10 minutes from now.
Well, thank you. We've come to the end anyway. Thank you all devotees for your insights and devotion and coming together and sharing Srimad Bhagavatam. And specifically, His Grace SALIKA Prabhu, thank you so much for stepping in within such a short period of time. And with that being said, we're going to humbly request all devotees to kindly unmute. And we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace SALIKA Prabhu. Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Jai
Jai.
Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Jai.